Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Meet the Parents with myself, Sean Haggerty, and my wife, Diona Doherty.
Hello.
Our guest this week is IVF Mumblings on Instagram. Her name is Aideen McCanny.
Well done, Sean.
Got all that right?
Congratulations.
That's right.
That's me off the rest of the episode. You two take it from here. I'll just step back.
We just discussed how Sean's memory is abominable.
It's so bad. It's so bad. So yeah, welcome to the episode and welcome Aideen, our guest.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Before we get into the episode, I would just like to remind everyone that my show, Sunny Side Up, is currently on sale for 2 weeks in April. It will play in the Lyric Theatre in Belfast. It is a dark comedy, a one-woman show, just I, on the stage for 90 minutes, playing loads of different characters. And the story is about a couple's fertility journey to try and start a family. So we should probably give a little bit of a trigger warning at the start of this episode that we will be talking about baby loss and fertility and all those sorts of things. But we hope that it will be informative and helpful, maybe to some people. Aideen, thank you very much for coming in.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good, yeah. Not too bad. A wee bit nervous, but...
Don't be. Sean, I can't remember anything. You were just talking about you went to see Bluey last week in the Opera House.
Yes, and kids loved it. It was really good.
Oh, in the Opera House?
Yeah, in the Opera House,
Right,
yeah.
What did you think it was?
Don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was
leisure
like a
centre or
proper setup and everything. It was great, and the kids loved it, and it was good crack as
Bluey's
well.
a cartoon.
Bluey's a cartoon.
So how do they...
So they were like big puppets, like big massive puppets, and they had two people operating each of them.
Okay.
Somebody
So they were
wasn't
doing-
inside the puppet?
No, so
Right.
they were on stage. So at the beginning, whenever you saw it, it was kind of like, this is a bit weird, but
Right.
you forgot they were there, and they were kind of just getting
Yeah.
on with it, and no, it was great.
They do that for the Peppa Pig one as well. We've seen
Yeah.
a few YouTube
Did.
videos on Peppa.
See, I've been thinking about bringing Winter to see Peppa in May. I think it's the Ulster Hall or something, but it's like puppets. Oh, you're not into Peppa?
Not into Peppa.
Peppa's a wee bitch.
She's a wee bitch.
She's a
She
Peppa's
is
a wee
bitch.
a moaner. Like she's so horrible to Daddy Pig as well. They just come fat
come
all the
fat
time.
all the
time.
All the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
They're all so mean to him.
They're always like,
Yeah.
Daddy can't wear that. Look at
Yeah.
the size of his belly. It's like so rude.
And about how lazy he is as well. Yeah. I think he's the best in the whole show, and they're just so mean to him.
It's awful.
And
isn't
every
it?
episode, they just jump in muddy puddles.
Yeah,
Every episode.
which is a nightmare
Every
if you
episode.
are a parent.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah,
watching
yeah.
Peppa, because if we go out anywhere and there's a puddle, Lucy is straight in it. Even
Yeah.
if she's not well, he's straight and muck up their knees, and I'm like, cheers, thanks, Peppa.
But everything that happens in a Peppa episode is basically Peppa complaining that she's not got the biggest slice
Yeah.
of the cake, or she can't press the button,
Yeah.
or she can't go first, or she can't.
She's not the centre of attention, basically.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
then I think that they have the character of Peppa being such a wee shit so that she learns a lesson. So
Possibly.
that there's a teaching moment.
But does she learn a
Yeah.
lesson?
Not really. She doesn't learn anything.
No.
But they try. I think they try. I think there's always somebody going, no, Peppa, you have to wait your turn.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah.
know if she does.
She probably doesn't care.
Yeah.
No?
I read a book to Winter the other night actually, and it was about Peppa's bike ride or something.
Yeah.
And they were all on the bike ride.
Here,
and
by the way, I'm an absolute badass. That's from the library. Haven't returned it.
Oh, no, we've had that like a year.
I need to
at
get
the
that
least.
back.
Idea, because we haven't even signed up for the library yet, so at least you're...
Oh, I just went to Steelbecks.
And do they have our like latest address? Yeah.
Yeah. They haven't got in touch. They're very, very lackadaisy about book thieves.
I think they're just so delighted that people are still using the libraries that they
Yeah.
don't care anymore.
Using the libraries as like a bookshop that you don't pay
Yeah.
for the books for. What happened in the book? Peppa's bike ride?
Yeah.
Oh, was she going down the hill or something?
She was going down, they were all, she was like, I have to get to the top of the hill first. I want this, I want that. You know, I want to ride Daddy's bike and he can ride mine, all this
Yes.
here. And then they met all Peppa's mates and then they all had a race down the hill and some fucking Danny dog was winning right
Oh,
to the
yeah.
end. And then Peppa, the wee bastard, beat him
Flew
right
on
at the
ahead.
end.
Yeah.
And then it was all about Peppa being
Yeah.
the best. And
But isn't it funny things that goes through your kids' minds? Because I was in the car with Winter yesterday and she goes to me, no, we don't watch Peppa Pig that often anymore. I say we, I never watched it. She doesn't watch it as much anymore. But yesterday she goes to me in the car, Mummy, does Pedro Pony brush his teeth? And I was like, I'm sure he does. She goes, because Miss Trunchbull doesn't. And she's like, I see her. Her teeth are green.
You would wonder, you never know what's going on in their heads. I spend so much of my day trying to figure out, how did she get to that thought? Or how,
Yes.
like what goes on in their head that they get to that stage.
I know.
Like Lucia, every morning she gets up and there's something, like my brother was taking her to soft play a couple of months ago and she did not want to wear pants, but she was wearing a dress.
Yeah.
So trying to explain to her, you can't actually go to soft play with no pants on.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is in her head that has made her not want to wear those today?
I know. Like
crazy.
we know whenever we take Winter to soft play, she will do it.
shit.
She loves it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what she does.
One of my
every
friends
single
says
time.
this every single time they go to soft play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
You'll
standing
find
at the
her
top, Joe, the
in a
wee, like,
corner.
sort of
You can see her
ropey.
pushing.
And she's just like,
Red faced.
and you're paying, come down here. And she's all,
I'm okay. That's what she does. I'm okay. I'm okay. No, I'm okay. I'm okay.
and then you're like, come here. And she's all, no.
No.
And you're like, you have to.
Yeah, yeah,
She
yeah.
And
comes down,
then
what?
20 minutes later with her legs.
Hanging out of the nappy. Yeah, my youngest is
worst.
like that. He's stand and we're kind of at the stage we probably should start potty training him. And you can see he's stand pushing and he's going bright red. And I'm going, are you doing a poo? And he's like, no.
Like, why?
Just in pure denial that it's happening.
It's bizarre. She is potty trained and she wears pants like, but she will still
She'll
stand
still
and
do
soft
it.
playing.
Yeah.
It's like a wee treat for her.
She's just like,
She'll be like, this is
what
what
are
I'm
you
going to do
about it?
We need adult nappies, though.
Yeah.
There are adult nappies. We wear them after we have babies. Do
Yeah, well, we need them. Joe, what we need them for?
you not remember me trying to suggest you mine adult nappy? You
Is
loved
that
it.
what I took off?
You wonder why my knickers are so
Two wee
noisy.
stickers at the side. I was at, was it the Prodigy in, what do you call the big T
Aye.
one of the big Ormo Park?
Okay.
Yeah, in Ormo Park. And this was halfway through the concert, and my leg was like wet, and I was all, what the fuck's happened? And this guy was just standing there drunk holding a pint glass, and I was like, he spilt a pint on me or something here. And then he like pulled his trousers back up. He had pissed in the pint glass.
No. And it gone all over
just,
you.
And then just threw it on the
Oh
ground, and it
my
splashed all over me.
God.
And I'm like,
What did you do?
I just sort of like
Continued
looked
your
at
day?
him for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then just continued to smack my bitch up.
Do you know, like, most people would be like, what the hell? Like, you just covered me in your pish, but Sean would be that nice where he would look at them going, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. He'd be like, you threw your piss at me.
So you just recovered in pee then for the rest of the...
Yeah.
Great.
That's brutal. Speaking about bringing your kids to shows, I brought Winter to like a princess show last week. It was like all the princesses, and she's only just came into her like princess era. To be honest, we tried to skip it. I was like, I cannot be bothered with all the princess
Yeah.
stuff. It drives me mad. But Jesus, she loved it.
Did she?
Oh my God, she loved it. She was up at the front, just like did you see when you see a sea of 3 and 4 year old wee girls in dresses, like princess dresses, just like having the best time,
Living their best life.
And then our nepo baby Winter got to go up on stage at the end and
No
sing a song with
way.
Elsa.
Oh my
And she
God.
stood there with her own microphone singing word for word every bit of it. She's 2, and
No
everyone
way.
cheered at the end. And she was just like
Loving
the whole
life.
time. She was like, "When can I go up on the stage?" So then, whenever we were back after she'd been to that show, then I think it's her calling. I think she's like, I need to be on the stage. And I told Sean, I think we should get her a stage. This is how the difference between how Sean and mine's work. I told Sean, we should get a stage, like get a joiner in and get a stage built in her room. Do you reckon in the corner, like a platform, and get like the curtains up and like have a mic stand and like maybe we'll put like wee LED
The whole
lights
ordeal.
in, like Bluetooth speaker. We'll make it like a little stage so she can perform. Sean went and got, do you know the wooden bath mat that sits outside the bath?
Yes.
He brought it downstairs and got his old mic stand and her child's microphone and stuck it in and said to her, there's your stage. Now she stands on the bath mat in the living room.
She
That's
loves
all
it,
she
though.
needs.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
We just saved ourselves a fortune because
I
she...
got all the time though. We were out at my mum's house one time, and my 3 boys wanted a basketball net, and this was like in the countryside in the middle of nowhere, and I
just like ripped open a packet of oranges and just strung the thing outside a window and was like, there you go.
very
So
close.
used to thinking outside the box.
I
Maybe
got a
you live in the
bucket
country
and
'cause-
just punched the bottom through the bucket,
Yeah.
and then just put it on a bit of scaffolding and pushed it into the muck, and they played basketball for 2 or 3 hours.
I mean,
Class.
that's great.
Pretty, yeah.
Aesthetically, I'd be like, that's way looking. But then if
Yeah.
it does the job.
Do you ever see in Tesco too the boxes you get? You know, if they've run out of bags and they
crate.
go
Oh,
take a big
yeah.
kind of cardboardy kind of box. Got one of those and put sticks on it, and then put string 3 times the whole way around it, and it was a wrestling ring, and they played with all their wee wrestling characters too.
Ah,
So yeah.
Very good.
I must
But
have been
I-
looking out the window when you done all
What
this.
did I do recently? Didn't I do something? Was it that, or was it something else I did?
Well, no, because we had a big, massive box in the house, and I cut a hole in it for like, and made it a doll's house, and Winter just drew on it.
Oh, here, that's all we do with cardboard
Yeah,
boxes.
just
I
colour
just
them
set
in.
the kids, if there's cardboard box, set them inside it with markers and
Yeah.
leave them to it.
yeah,
Or
they
like
love it, they
cut
love it.
open
Yeah.
a cereal box, and I turn it inside out and sellotape it, so
Oh,
it's
haven't
now
done
a
that.
box again. And then Winter
Oh.
just designs it
Draws
and
all
sticks
over it.
stickers on it.
Yeah, or the stickers. Nobody brings stickers into my house.
I know.
Ever. Never buy your kids stickers. They are literally everywhere, and they're these wee tiny ones. They're about this
know.
size, and they're just covered. And I've gone out of the house, And I've been out for about 5 hours, and I look, and there's like stickers all down my back where they've covered them.
It's
And
usually
it's a
maybe
nightmare.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was me
Yeah.
yesterday. I had a white hoodie on. It was all Watsits all down the back of my shoulder.
Watsits and quavers are like
People are
the
very
worst.
understanding when they
know.
see you, and you're all, I understand. It's just
Yeah,
kids in your
they
house,
just
that's why
get
they're
it.
stinking.
Yeah.
If they want to spoon you, that's what happens, isn't it?
I thought you meant like spoon feed you. You meant like,
Hug me from behind.
big spoon or wee spoon, you know? I think I prefer being the big spoon. Being the wee spoon's pretty crap.
The wee spoon's the one being hugged, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know, when you're a woman and you're the wee spoon, if someone's big spooning you, you're like, suck on my belly now, aren't I? And you sit there like out there all. I'm not falling asleep because I'm pretending to be skinnier. Do you know what I mean?
I need my space. I just cannot.
Yeah.
I'm just like have a hug and then both roll over and ignore each other for the rest of the
I'm
night.
so horrible to you whenever we
yeah.
sleep.
I touch her with my toe.
And I'd be like, get. I kick him and all.
She either kicks me or she pulls away as if she's repulsed. Like
It's just I don't want to touch
millisecond.
feet.
Yeah, I like my own space. Although Killian usually ends up between the two of us in the middle of the night at some point.
Is this your
Youngest.
Your youngest? What did you say?
He's 2.5, and
Okay.
he still does not sleep through the night.
Oh no.
No.
You need to go back and watch our sleep training
Tough.
episode.
I did sleep training. We did sleep training with this
Did you?
child. I'm not even joking. We still try it from time to time. The child, if he wakens up, that's it. He screams. There's no settling him. And he just wants under our bed, comes under our bed, gets himself comfortable, lies down, goes back to sleep. That's him in the morning.
Oh well then maybe that's
He's
just
just
what you do.
shit.
Do
Do
you
you
not
know-
wait till he falls back asleep and then carry him into his bed? Does he wake up?
Oh no, he'd waken up and just stand up and do the same thing again. My husband went in last night and managed the first time, got him settled at about 12. He went back down and then he fell asleep on the floor. This happens all the time. I can't go in because if I go in, he just won't settle for me.
Yeah,
I
he
just have
wants
to bring
out.
him in.
Yeah.
So he always goes in first and tries him. And he got him back to sleep. He came back into bed. As soon as he got into bed, stood up on the cot screaming for me. Had to bring him in. And then he
Oh.
do you know what? I don't mind that much because he sleeps in the morning anyway. So it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But yeah, he's just a rascal.
I think the older they get, the harder it is to like,
Yeah.
like you can't really ignore them, especially if they can climb out of the cot and all, or
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you
And the two of them are in the same room too. So whenever
Oh,
he
jeepers,
starts
aye.
saying you have to lift him out, or she'd be up as well. and
Yeah.
there's many's a night. The four of us are in the bed.
Oh my
And I'm
God.
going. Seems to somehow have his whole side of the bed, and I'm and
You have them all on
squashed to one
top of
side,
you.
one on either side,
Ours
one on
have
my head.
never been interested in sleeping beside us.
I
Really?
know.
Like
are lucky, like.
we must smell. Because our like if we brought winter, if she got into the bed beside us, she just gets too excited
Yeah.
because it's such a treat. And
I
she's
know.
all,
One time during the day, me and her were both going to go for a nap at the same time, and I says to her, jump into bed beside
Yeah.
me, and she fell asleep. And I couldn't believe it, and I must have took about 20 photos of her just sleeping. I was like, this
Yeah.
is...
No,
I
our
can't
two will
believe
sleep
this.
anywhere. And my friends always laugh because Killian, like yesterday, no, it was the day before, fell asleep in the car seat and I carried him into the house, put him in the sofa. He stayed sleeping in the sofa. Had to go and pick Lucia up to put him back in the car seat and he stayed asleep until we got back to the house again.
oh my God.
Yeah, but like won't sleep in his own bed at night. It's
That's
crazy.
mad.
Or Lucia is the same. She'll just fall asleep if she's watching TV in the living room. My friends are like, my kids never do that.
No, I think because we've been so regimented with sleeping schedules and routines that ours are just so used to sleeping in just their bed.
Yeah.
That they would fall asleep in the car seat, like, but then as soon as you get like within 10 metres of our driveway and they just
wake
sniff
up.
it and they're like,
Yeah.
we're awake. Like
Yeah.
as soon as they know they're coming to our house, they're like straight awake. So you run an IVF account.
Yes.
So tell us about your like we you know that we've done IVF
Yes.
to have our kids as well. Tell us about your experience of doing IVF because you did it quite a few times, didn't you?
Yeah, so 7 times in total, which is just nuts whenever I think about it.
Yeah.
We got married at day 27 and we've been together for years, and for us it was just kind of naturally the next thing, we'll try and have kids.
So whenever you started to try to have kids, you didn't know that it would be difficult.
No idea whatsoever. Everything was pretty normal for the two of us. No health problems, both slim, eat well, exercise, all that jazz. So we actually joked. I remember us having the conversation about it, and we kind of joked about we were going to be one of those couples that it would happen for first time.
Yeah.
And we laugh about that now, but we genuinely, we thought that, like, just never questioned it. And then it got to about 6 months of trying and nothing had happened. And it was in my head then, something's not right here. So we stuck it out. We tried for the full year and went to the GP, and the GP was like, right, we'll refer you on for the necessary tests. So both tested, referred to the Royal, everything came back normal again, still couldn't find anything. So they were like, right, well, you're ideal candidates for IVF. So we were like, great.
So it came back like unexplained.
Unexplained infertility.
That's like
which
the
is
most common
it's
one,
the-
and it's the
Yeah,
worst.
It's the most frustrating
I think so.
because every time we were going through treatment, I was like, I just want an answer. I just want to know why this isn't working, because we can find out why it's not working. We can fix it. But nobody could ever tell.
I think sometimes unexplained infertility is so annoying because obviously most people are like, well, we don't know who it is, we don't know what it is. But then do you not think sometimes it's a blessing in disguise? Because if one of you was told it's you, then the guilt you would harbour.
But then I also feel like whenever it's unexplained, for me, it was me.
Yeah.
Because Andrew has one test to do and it came back normal, and there's only so many tests she can do for a woman that you can't really tell the full extent of what's going on.
Yeah.
So I very much took the burden of that and felt like it was me and I was the reason that it wasn't working. So yes, that was really frustrating, and we just didn't know why it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Did you go through this, just the two of you, or did you confide in family or friends or anything?
So we were very open about it, and the reason why, because I found personally that all my friends were getting pregnant and some of them were on to their second or third child, and you know, I found it easier to tell people because I kind of felt like if people know what we're going through,
they'll stop asking questions.
Stop asking questions, but also to go on a night out. It's very difficult if you go on a night out and all your friends have kids and you don't, and all they talk about is their kids. And I have found now I am more mindful. Like if I go out with friends and say one of them, if I think there might be something going on there, or say somebody has said they don't want kids, I am aware of not talking about kids all night because I know what that's like.
Yeah.
So I was, my family and friends did know what we were going through, and sometimes it was good because you'd somebody to talk to, but then other times the frustrating thing for me was I didn't really know anybody going through IVF, so they didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
And that's why I started the Instagram account, because I just thought I need an outlet for this.
Yeah.
I just started it almost as like a way to document it. But the amount of women on Instagram that were going through IVF that I was chatting to, and
so
reading
many
their stories.
alone as well.
Yeah.
So many people go through it without telling a soul because they're so embarrassed, or they're so
there's still that
confused.
stigma attached to it,
It's
which is
awful.
crazy, and it just needs to be better.
So when you started then, when you were like, okay, we need to do IVF,
Yes.
you did that here?
We were referred to Belfast Fertility. No, we weren't, sorry. We were, first of all, with the Royal, their fertility clinic in there. We did an egg collection, which I was awake for. Do not recommend. And I was
out for mine.
You were
Yeah,
right, you were
Jesus
right.
Christ.
So they call it a booking appointment, and I went in to get my medication stuff, and you have like a dedicated nurse and she goes through everything. And I said, I'm really worried about being awake for this. And she was basically like, well, if you want to be sedated, then you need to go private and pay for that. This is the NHS. And that was my first experience. I wasn't expecting her to turn around and say, well, sure, if you're nervous, we'll knock you out for it. I just wanted a wee bit of reassurance that it wasn't going to be that painful.
What was it like for you?
It was horrendous. And I had 20 eggs collected as well.
At 21?
It was awful.
22?
Oh.
Awful. No,
Yeah.
you're just like, that's
You
so
go
much.
in- yeah. Like that's not normal.
No.
You're supposed to release one egg a month. And we were releasing
22 menstrual cycles in the one go.
Yeah. Crazy, which was nuts.
I know.
But I was awake for it.
Because I had
then.
so many eggs, I ended up with OHSS.
That happened my third egg collection. I
Right.
had that. Yeah.
That was the worst.
Brutal.
That was
That
the
was the
worst.
worst part of it.
We were in the
I
Czech
was-
Republic, the two of us.
Yeah,
you
I
were
was
bedridden for
listening.
like
That's
10
crazy.
days.
10 days.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's a
awful.
lot. And which is, for anybody who's listening doesn't know what that is, it's basically where your ovaries are like hyperstimulated and they end up huge, like the size of grapefruits.
Yeah.
Sometimes melons, they're
Yeah.
not huge.
I
and
could
it's really painful.
I could actually feel my ovaries by touching my stomach. I could feel them. They were so swollen.
Oh my God.
Like that's not normal. No,
It's really
crazy.
painful.
Yeah, so to go through that awake then was
Yeah.
awful.
So if you've had 3 egg collections,
3
so
egg
you've had
collections.
20 eggs.
So I had 20 eggs the first time, and we ended up with 4 embryos.
Right.
So 2 of them we were able to transfer, 2 separate transfers through the NHS, and then that was us done with
Yeah.
our funded IVF.
Yeah.
So we had two frozen still in the Royal, and the consultant had suggested, whenever I went in for an appointment after the second one, she was kind of like, look, I would have expected this to have worked by now. I don't really know why it's not. And she said there's tests if you want to go and have more tests in England before we start our next
Another
round.
round.
So I went over to England, had to go over twice, 2 separate occasions to have biopsies, which I was also awake for, also horrendous. I always say, see if men had to go through IVF, completely
I know.
different experience.
The world would stop.
It would,
Yeah.
like,
We
it would
wouldn't even
just...
mention it. we would just get on with the day.
Just get on with it. Jesus, they would do it before fixing a shelf and
Just match it on in the background. Just,
No bother to you.
Yeah.
And the tests were supposedly to check if I had this thing called NK killer cells, which apparently is, I think at the time it was kind of like not a fad, but there was some research that suggested it could be a problem in some women, and if they had it, it meant that if they were high, you could take steroids, and that would potentially mean that your transfer would be more successful. I didn't have it, so it came back negative as well. So we were still trying to find answers too as to why it wasn't working, and we still couldn't get answers. So came back and transferred. We had to go private then through the Royal
to do your frozen transfers.
Two frozen cycles. Transferred both of those, didn't work.
Did you do it on the one go or separate times?
All of these so far were separately. So 4 individual transfers.
4 transfers.
Yeah, they wouldn't. At that stage, we were kind of questioning, could they transfer 2? And they said no, that it was still very early, and they were kind of more on erring on the side of caution, which is fair enough.
And what type of grade were your embryos? Were they like high grade embryos? Because obviously that isn't a factor.
Yeah, so I think those ones were Bs. There were 4 Bs, which is fine.
Yeah, still great. Yeah.
Yeah, but nothing worked.
so how was your and your husband's mental health then throughout that? Because it must have been tough.
I think because it was like, I just assumed it would have worked by now. It didn't work first time, and then I thought, right, we'll go into it second time. Still didn't work third time, and I'm going, how many times am I going to have to do this? At what point do you call this a day? At what day do you say I've had enough of this?
And did you decide that you would do it for a certain length of time?
So we decided then, we took a bit of a break. We looked into Belfast fertility in Belfast, obviously, and we needed to put together £11,000. We needed to get that saved. So we took a break to get saving for that. And the way that they work, you can't just do pay as you go, or you can sort of buy into a sort of cycle where you could get 2 full egg collections and all the embryos. So if you had 10
transferred.
embryos, you could get those all included in it. So we thought, we'll do that. We'll go through this and we'll reassess things if this still doesn't work. So the first cycle, I had 18 eggs collected. Was sedated. Was lovely.
Yeah.
I was so delighted.
Do you remember being sedated and I remember sitting looking at the person who does the thing, like whatever you call it, for your general anesthetic, and I remember looking at them going, here, listen, I am really strong-willed, I'll definitely, and then I was like, then 2 seconds.
You wake up and it's like the best sleep you've ever had, and you've only been sleeping for half an hour or something.
I was giddy when I came out, it was lovely.
It's so nice.
I would do it right now.
I would as well, I'm not going to lie.
But it's up until this week, you could only get your fresh embryo transfer and your frozen embryo transfer. But now in the NHS in Northern Ireland, it's just changed this week that you get all of your frozen embryos transferred.
I think they're working towards it. I don't know how long it'll be.
How long it will come into effect.
But also, if it's not fair on a lot of women because
who don't get many frozen embryos.
But also, I think there's like a date that you have to have been on the waiting list from. So it's only going to apply to some women and not others, which is hard too.
Yeah, I suppose if you do if you get one embryo and you transfer that embryo and then that's you done then, but you obviously could start again and do another egg collection, whereas if you had 10 embryos you get all them for free. It's really unfair. Even whenever we did it too, like we didn't get anything for free, not one go, because we were told Sean already has children.
But that in itself too frustrates me because people's circumstances change. Like you weren't to know when you made that decision at that age that you were going to want to have more children.
I know.
Like,
and also I didn't have any.
And also, it's just not fair. There's so much about IVF that I just find is so unfair.
Yeah. And we know people who, like, I know a woman who had a daughter naturally and then couldn't get pregnant the second time and she got.
Oh, did she get IVF?
Yeah, and she had another child, and it's like, but how can she have that and I can't have any?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it is very unfair, like.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. So after that, so we did that, the first egg collection with Belfast Fertility. We had 16 eggs and only 2 embryos. And after the egg collection, one of the embryologists came in and he said, look, I've had a look at your eggs, and he said they look a bit weird. And I was like, right, okay, this was me only coming off sedation as well. And I was
like, buy me a drink first.
It's like, do I want to know this? And he said that they looked a bit greeny was how he described it. He says they look funny in the centre, and I was like, right, well, what does that mean? And he said, your AMH is high, So whenever we stimulate you, you're just producing loads of eggs, but they're not necessarily good quality. So that's why I was having such a big drop off to embryo stage, because the eggs were basically all crap. They were just pumping me full of hormones. I was producing all these eggs and they weren't going any further than that. So he said, look, we'll transfer, see how you get on, what stage we end up. So we ended up with 2 embryos, went through 2 more transfers, neither of those worked either. So we're going into our 3rd egg collection.
Jesus Christ.
And at that point, I definitely
and like
at that
what your
stage,
body goes through at that point,
I
and that's
know.
before you even have to then hopefully go through pregnancy.
Yeah.
You're like, it's a lot.
the 2 week wait, as they call it, is horrendous.
Oh, it's the longest time of your life.
Yeah.
My play, Sunny Side Up, is set in that 2 week wait.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because it's
very good.
it's that is the, it's like people
It's the worst part of
it's
IVF.
the worst part.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Like, I would take the treatment and everything over that, injecting myself.
And
Did
do you know
you-
what's the hardest
waiting
part though
that.
about that 2 week wait is because you have to treat yourself like you're pregnant.
As if you're pregnant. And you do, for me, like every time I went through it, for the first few days, I felt like I was pregnant. I was definitely pregnant.
Yeah.
And then the doubts started creeping in about day 3 or 4.
But like technically,
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
They've just placed a live
embryo.
embryo in your
Yeah,
body.
yeah.
So there and then you leave that day and there is an embryo in your womb. So you're
It's just
leaving.
whether or not
you're
it
pregnant.
It's
sticks.
whether it's a, so you
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
and I remember you like whenever ours didn't work too, going, I know that hasn't worked. I feel different. I don't
Yeah.
feel pregnant anymore, and I
Yeah.
felt
Yeah,
pregnant
you
at the
felt
start.
after a while, didn't you?
Felt after like maybe 6 or 7 days when we're going. I know now. I know it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So did you
just
wait the
know.
full 2 weeks with each?
The first few I definitely did. Towards the end, I think I always held out. I wanted to have tested before I went into the clinic for the beta. I didn't want to go in and have the blood test and get a nurse phoning me and saying you're not pregnant. So I always tested before I went in and had that done, so that I knew what the outcome was going to be. I didn't want some
Stranger
randomer on
telling
the
you, yeah.
phone to tell me what I already. So that's why I tested.
Yeah.
But I always waited around day 10, day 11 because I knew that I didn't want to test it early, and
It's a false positive, and then I know because that can happen.
there's that.
We tested twice a day, didn't we? Sometimes
tested
like
so early. for all
I
ours.
see people on Instagram do that all the time.
It's
and
hard
I
not
just
to,
couldn't do
like,
it.
it's
It
so
is.
hard.
You know what too? You rob yourself of that moment
Yes.
where you go, oh my god, it worked, because you're going, is that a lie?
Yeah.
And then you test again the next day, and then there's never that moment where you're like, oh my god, it's worked. There's
Yeah.
always just that, is it? And then until like a couple, maybe a week or 2 passes, and then you like accept it then. So
But then also IVF pregnancy is really difficult
I know.
because you're just convinced that it's not going to
last.
That you're just waiting for that to happen too.
So then we're on to your 7th time now.
So yes, so we were on to our 3rd egg collection, and what they did this time, they lowered the dose of stims, so the injections, so it's getting slightly less hormones, and did it for a longer period. So I ended up with 16 eggs and something crazy like 10 of them fertilized, and we ended up with
So that worked.
6 embryos.
Yeah.
So it took us to kind of realise, yes, there probably is a problem with egg quality. This is what we can do to hopefully try and get a better outcome. And it worked then. So I ended up with, I think, 3 grade A embryos, which was the best that we had, and then 3 Cs, which isn't amazing, but they were able to be frozen as well.
Yeah.
So we couldn't believe it whenever, we got to the stage, and I was kind of not pushing to transfer to, but a couple of the consultants were saying, look, you've been through so many rounds. They didn't think it was going to work. Like, nobody at that stage was like, you've lost like 6 embryos, we've transferred here, it hasn't worked, we don't think it will. So why not try transferring 2? So for me, that was a no-brainer. I just thought, if I can go through less, never really thinking it would end in a twin pregnancy. I just thought, if we can
One
go
might
through
work.
more embryos, then it's less rounds that I have to go
Yeah.
through, and it'll be easier on my body.
And pay for it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly. So we waited until, I think my blood test was on the Monday. On the Friday, Andrew came home from work and I said, I want a test. I can't wait until Monday. He's very level-headed. He's a doctor. He was like, no, we want to wait till Monday. He hid the pregnancy tests in the house so that I couldn't
my
find them
God.
and test on my own.
Sean does that with chocolate in ours.
I'm always scared I'll open a cupboard and find like random pregnancy tests in it now. So he hid them. Whenever I come home on the Friday evening, if I looked for them and
you'd
couldn't
have seen
find them, if I knew where they were, I definitely would have tested on my own, and I'm glad I didn't, because obviously it was positive then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't want to do that on your own.
On your
the
own,
only
I know,
time.
I know. So waited for him to come home, said I wanted a test, and he said that's fine, and we couldn't believe it. Like I was in my pajamas, and we got in the car and drove to Tesco to go and buy more pregnancy tests, because we were just, this was 5 years, and I had never had a positive pregnancy test. I was like, I am doing all the pregnancy tests in the world now.
I'm sure that's just pure disbelief. We were like,
it was just the two of us
there's
were just in
no way.
complete shock, couldn't believe it. And then on the Monday I went in for the bloods. All the nurses were buzzing, because we'd been in so many times, and you got to know them, and you had your favourites, and they were all delighted for us. And they phoned me to say that the blood test had come back, and I think they usually wanted to be like, is it around 100 or something? Mine was nearly 10,000, the level.
Because you twins.
Because
as well.
whenever she said that, I was like, I knew myself that the two of them had stuck.
taken.
So they had said, right, you have to come in for blood tests.
Is it your
That's
F? What is it? Your F?
F
Hitch or something? Whatever.
HCG, is it?
HCG.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the levels in the pregnancy hormone basically in your blood.
So it was so high that they had said, right, we're going to get you in for a scan at 6 weeks to see what's happening. So at about 5 weeks, Andrew was working, I was in the house on my own, and I started to bleed, and I thought, what the fuck am I going to do? I was on my own. I didn't know. I don't think we told anybody we were pregnant. We hadn't told anybody we were pregnant at that stage, and I didn't know what to do. I phoned the clinic, and it took ages, because obviously it was a Saturday night. Consultant finally phoned me back, and he said, look, if it gets any worse, you need to go into the early pregnancy unit. If not, I'll see you in the morning, come in for a scan. So then in the morning, we were waiting. He was doing an egg collection. We sat in the waiting room in Belfast Fertility for an hour waiting for the scan. And I was nearly sick waiting. I just had convinced myself, hadn't slept all night, convinced myself that we were losing. At that stage, I hadn't had a scan. So I was just kind of like, well, it's maybe only one, and we could be losing one here. What's going on? So went in for the scan, and saw that there was two. Couldn't believe it. I broke down in tears. I felt like we'd won the lottery after all this time. To find out that we were pregnant with two was just so surreal.
I know, I'm sure.
Was there ever a time when you considered giving up or exploring other options?
So I had said that if we went through that batch of embryos, if it hadn't worked,
The second time round, sorry?
yes, so this was the round that we were on at the minute, the third egg collection. If we transferred all those embryos and it hadn't worked, I wanted to look at going abroad and using donor eggs, which my husband was on the fence about. But for me, I had just got so consumed by it all. I just felt like I had to be pregnant at the end of it to kind of like almost get justice for having gone through all these rounds of IVF. My goal was to be pregnant. I wanted to be pregnant, and I couldn't even see past the point of having a baby. It was just to get pregnant, to kind of like prove everybody wrong.
You can get pregnant.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking, and we were chatting about it. And I always like to be one step ahead. Andrew's very much like, let's just take it as it comes, see what happens. So he was like, right, well, we'll talk about it after. Let's just focus on this now and see what happens.
And then, so then you were pregnant with twins then?
I was pregnant with twins. No more bleeding or anything, which was great. And everything was well. Like, it was a pretty normal pregnancy until about 28 weeks. And I developed this condition, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong. It's cholestasis or cholestasis, it's called. And basically, it's to do with your liver produces bile acids, but mine was producing too many, and they're like floating around in your bloodstream. So I was getting really itchy hands and feet at night time, and it was driving me mad. And I phoned the hospital, and they said, come in, and they did the blood test, and they said, yes, you've got this. But they were also starting to query my kidney function as well. They were doing bloods and all the rest, and they were bringing me in for monitoring. I was in and out for that, and they were doing scans.
Were they monitoring your kidney function because obviously there's quite a lot of... You've had to take a lot of stuff for years?
I think in my head, so my blood pressure, because I'm smaller, my blood pressure is on the lower side anyway. So whenever I was pregnant, my blood pressure had gone up, but it was normal still.
Yeah.
So I think in my head I had preeclampsia, and it just wasn't, or it was early stages of preeclampsia.
Because you were very low?
Yeah. So I think that they just had to treat me as if I didn't have it. And I think that's why my kidney function started to fail as well, because there was definitely something else going on. So they're bringing me in I was doing bloods, having bloods done, having scans. They were like really monitoring me. And then At 30 weeks, I was getting in. It was a Sunday. I was getting in that morning for more scans and bloods, and my husband was working, and I was getting ready. My waters broke. I sat in the house on my own. 30 plus 1, I think it was. And I phoned the hospital, and they were like, "Yep, come in." Had to phone my mother-in-law. I remember like taking a wee towel out of the hot press to sit on it in her seat in case it leaked all over the front of the car seat. This was the middle of COVID. She had to drop me off outside the Royal and let me walk in on my own. And she still to this day, she thinks about that, and she said, "I can't believe I had to do that, leave you on your own."
I know.
So I went in, and they were very good. Everything was very quick, and they were like, "Right, you're in labour. We're going to try and stop it." So brought me up to the ward and gave me magnesium and all the rest, but it was too late. Like, Owen was for coming out. His water had broken, and phoned Andrew. He was able to get someone to cover for him. He came in, and then the labour was kind of progressing. There was all this like queries over beds. They were talking about sending me to Dublin. There was like it was just nuts. Actually have so much memory loss. I can't remember much about it.
It's the trauma.
Andrew sat and wrote it all down while he was sitting in the room. So if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would remember anything.
Yeah.
So then,
fair play to him. I wouldn't have thought.
I know, I wouldn't have thought that either.
Most people would never think of
Yeah,
doing
I think that's the doctor in him. That was just his, he didn't know what else to do. So he was just like, I'll just record all this.
So did you have both of your twins on the same day then?
Yes.
Obviously, that has to happen.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, so Owen's cord prolapsed, so they were bringing me to theatre. I still at that stage thought that I was just going to have a natural birth and then get into the theatre, and basically was knocked out and had a section, and they took the babies out. So Andrew wasn't in the room. He wasn't allowed to be in. I was in on my own. I was unconscious.
And you didn't know you were about to have a C-section?
No.
No.
I didn't know what was going on. I just kept asking, "Where's Andrew? Where's Andrew?" And they just stuck him asking me.
Do you not have to give consent for a C-section?
Because it was emergency.
Oh, it's an emergency?
Yeah.
Jesus.
So the consultant said if she had put me in an ambulance to Dublin, it would have been an absolute disaster that somebody
What would they have been able to...
Yeah.
It been down the side of the road.
Did it be a C-section on the motorway?
Could you imagine?
So you woke up, babies are there.
Yeah. Husband was like, I was like, "Well, what happened?" And he was like, "Oh, they've been born. We had a boy and a girl." And Owen was £2.4 and Lucia was £3.6.
Wow.
So they were down in the NICU then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was still being treated because I was an inpatient, and I had these like issues with my liver and my kidneys and stuff, and they were down in the neonatal ward then as well.
So could you hold the babies and stuff? Because I know a lot of the time when they're so away, you can't touch them.
Owen was really fragile. He was he was tiny, and Lucia, we were able to get her out a good bit more because she was a bit bigger. But yes, the nurses were so good. Like they encouraged skin to skin, so they were bringing them out, even if it was just for 5 minutes. But there was days we went in and you just sat with the two of them on you for hours, and it was great. And then everything was going like pretty well. We were kind of like speaking to doctors and saying like, "What's the plan here?" And they were like, "Look, we just need to get them fed up and get them growing, and
usually
then
they
get
just
them
need
out."
to get to like their due date,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah. Or even like around 36 weeks if you can get to that stage and
they're
everything's
healthy
going
and
okay.
live and kicking. Yeah.
And you were in the hospital every single day, like
every single day,
24/7 until.
Yeah.
And you have to go home at night.
So they discharged me after, I can't even remember, it was a few days. Whenever all my results came back normal, I was discharged. So we were going home and leaving the babies in the hospital.
That's awful.
Sleeping at home and then coming back in the morning. You were like eating in the hospital. You were just there all day.
But that, like, I could not imagine that, like, leaving your baby in the hospital and going home, like your two
horrendous.
babies, because
I don't know how we did it.
Obviously, they've been in your body for so long that feels like so unnatural for you.
And they think they're you, don't they? Until
yeah, that's the thing.
6 months
But
old
yeah,
or whatever.
babies. So we were just having to leave them there, and you're just in the care of strangers basically, and you're just putting all your trust in them. I was expressing, so whenever I woke up in the middle of the night, I would have phoned in to see how things were, what was happening. And then Andrew went back to work. He was actually working in Antrim Hospital, just on the ward, like opposite. So he went back to work. First day he went back to work, I was sitting with the two of them out, and I knew something wasn't right with Owen. And the monitor kept going off. He was having DSATs, and they put him back into the incubator and started doing blood tests, and they said he has an infection. So that night, we went home that night, got a phone call in the middle of the night to say things weren't good. Went in the next morning, and Andrew, I went in, and as soon as I saw him, there was doctors and nurses everywhere, all around. I went over and saw him, knew he wasn't well, phoned Andrew, got Andrew back to the ward, so that was him off work then for 6 months. And the next 5 weeks maybe were just such a blur. He basically developed this condition. It's like an infection on the bowel, and it's called NEC. And we moved over to the Royal. So Lucia was an Antrim. I was trying to establish breastfeeding her, and Owen was over in the Royal. So we had a baby in 2 separate hospitals, and we were having to decide who to go and stay with.
Jesus
So
Christ.
we would have spent most of the day with Owen in the Royal and then come over in the evening to be with Lucia. But Owen ended up having to have like 3 surgeries. So whenever he was having surgeries, we weren't able to go and see Lucia at all. Like we were just staying with him.
Of course.
And it was horrendous.
That's awful.
Like the guilt, like it was, I just don't know how we get through it.
Jesus, yeah.
Like,
We almost on autopilot or something.
Yeah,
or would just some
and-
part of your brain just have to shut off
Yeah.
and kind of just.
And just making a decision about which of your children to go and see every day. It was
Oh,
just
yeah.
awful. And just, trying to express. Like, I was sending, Andrew's mum was taking milk up to the hospital to Lucia. And it was just, the whole thing was just nuts.
Even doing that whilst, like, having 2 ill children, like, the fact
Yeah.
that you continue to express milk is, like,
On-
superhero shit.
This is awful. On the day that Owen died, one of the nurses came over to me and said, "You need to express. We need milk for Lucia." And I was just like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, seriously?" So I didn't.
Jesus
I never.
Christ.
Yeah. So what had happened then? Owen had these surgeries, and they had come back to us after the 3rd one to say he is not going to live. Basically, there's nothing we can do for him. His bowel was in such bad shape. We'd also found out he'd had a brain scan, and we'd found out that he'd severe cerebral palsy. So we knew the outlook, quality of
Wasn't
life
great.
wasn't going to be good at all. And we then were faced with the decision of turning off the ventilator. And on the day that we were to do it, he went himself. So it was an absolute blessing in disguise, because we didn't. I didn't sleep the night before. I was going to my husband, how does anybody do this? How does anybody make that decision to say, right, this is it? So he went himself. And we were there. They had brought Lucia over from Antrim Hospital for the couple of days before. They let all our family members in. This was the middle of COVID too. The Royal were unbelievable. They let all our family come in to meet him. We got photos with Owen and Lucia together, and we got to spend a couple of days together before he went. So it was as nice as it could be.
Fuck, it's, like, so heavy, isn't it?
Sorry.
No, Jesus
No,
Christ.
not at
no,
all,
it's-
like,
you're
it's-
like,
I'm so used to talking about it because that's all I've done for the past 3 years, that for me it's kind of like it just comes
it's
out
part
now.
of your fabric now.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like it's as you saying, like that, like sitting the night before, you
Yeah.
have to make that decision, and you've made that decision.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we knew, like, Andrew's a doctor as well, and the surgery, I don't know how he does it. I say this all the time. He's a colorectal surgeon, and a lot of the surgeries that he does is bowel. So he basically is doing surgery on adults that was performed on Owen, and he's had to just completely separate the two things. I don't know how he does it.
That would really
Yeah.
fuck with your mind.
So he was dealing with the whole grief side of things. I think about Owen all the time, but he has had to just put that away in a wee box in his head because it would affect his job.
It would.
You just
It would
couldn't
affect
do
his
it.
performance and work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
God, and that's like, isn't it strange how, you two had lived the same experience and had the same life and the same children, but you have to deal with it completely differently.
So strange. I just, and for me, it was almost like I was getting annoyed at him at times because I was like, why is this not consuming your every thought? Like, why, how,
Yeah.
and almost like envious that
Yeah.
he had this ability to do this, to just shut himself off from it. And I was like,
do you know
I
what it is?
can't.
It's like, what is it, that quote, something breeds necessity breeds
Yeah.
whatever it is, like, I don't know, but he had to do what he had to do
Yeah.
to keep plugging on, same as we all have
and
to.
he's still like, there's a lot of the like anniversaries and birthdays and all those sort of things. Like, we do things together as a family to remember Owen, and he's emotional on those days, and like he misses him as much as I do. But it's just that he has a different way of dealing with the grief.
Is it a juggling act too when you're celebrating one of their birthdays, but at the same day
Yes.
you're
It's
grieving the
awful.
other? How do you manage that? How do you balance it?
Because obviously they were born on the same day, I don't want Lucia's birthday and Owen's birthday. We just have to make it about Lucia now
Yeah.
on that day. And then because Owen's anniversary is only 7 weeks later,
Yeah.
we then make the day about him,
That
and we
day,
do a day dedicated to him. Because it was just, I just don't want her to grow up and almost like hate her birthday coming about
there's like
because
this
of that.
shadow hanging over her. Yeah, 'cause, I
that's
know.
how we've kind of had to separate it. You just have to do what
So-
you can to get through it.
When Owen passed away, and then obviously you have
Lucia.
Lucy is in a different hospital at that time, and then
Well, they moved her over, so she was in the Royal, but then after Owen died, they had to move her back to Antrim again.
right.
And I think it was like 3 days after Owen's funeral, we took Lucia home from hospital for good. So it was just like Owen had died and I had this newborn who was premature to look after. So I just put my grief on hold because I couldn't. I had to just focus on Lucia. There was nothing else for it.
And in a way do you think that might have helped?
Yes. And then I found out I was pregnant with Killian.
What? This is the thing I can't believe. So you then got pregnant naturally?
We spent about a week just
Were
looking
you
at
like-
each other and laughing. Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Lucia was like, Lucia was must have been 4 months. And like, she was premature, so you could take 2.5 months off that. And I remember, like, I'd only had one period and then I was late. But I was like, I mean, things are probably just working themselves out again. Like, this is normal.
Yeah.
And then
anything that happens to your body after pregnancy,
you're like, this is normal.
I'm so bollocks.
Your arms hanging off. Oh, it's just pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I was starting to get nauseous, and I thought I couldn't be. There's no way. And I had said to Andrew, and he was like, "Look, we'll give it a few more days." And then the nausea started to get worse. I said, I texted Andrew at work. I was like, "You're going to have to get a pregnancy test and bring it home." And
He's like, "There's one in the cupboard."
I've hidden 10 under the bed. He came home with a pregnancy test, and I just handed him Lucia, went up the stairs, did the test, and came down and was like, "It's positive." And he was like, "What?" Like, could not.
Way.
He's like, "You are joking." I said, "No, it's positive." The thing was positive before I even got my bum off the toilet seat. I was like,
oh my God.
what the hell? Couldn't believe it. So two of us just spent about a week walking around looking at each other laughing because we just couldn't. How does that happen after so long? And for me to have been told that poor egg quality was the reason that IVF wasn't working and I wasn't getting pregnant, and then Killian arrived.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
and like that, I mean, already having, like, you literally then had a baby who was just turned 1. She would have just turned 1, and then
13, there's 13 months between her and
wild.
So then obviously I was pregnant with Killian, and I then focused on that pregnancy because I was pregnancy after loss. Like, IVF pregnancy is hard. Pregnancy after loss is even harder.
And so triggering, I imagine.
Awful.
You're just
And I think my body hadn't recovered from that first pregnancy.
No way.
That C-section. I was terrified of, like, how was I going to deliver this baby? Like, what was the safest thing for him, for me?
And so I imagine that second pregnancy with your is Killian. That you'd have spent that whole time shitting yourself.
Yeah, it was awful. And I had loads of hospital appointments. And every appointment I went to, I saw a different doctor. They hadn't read my notes. I was having to explain the whole situation over and over again. And then with Killian, I developed cholestasis again. So that was the itchy hands and feet. And I went up to the pregnancy unit again on a Saturday night. And did I go on my own? I went up on my own. Andrew had Lucia. He was in Tesco. What had happened? No, hang on, sorry. I found out I had cholestasis, and then they were like, you have to have him at 38 weeks. I was like, right, okay. I was 36 at the time. And then they come back to say, no, actually, it's 36. Told me 38, then they told me 37. I was like, that's in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
They sent me home, put on medication, was going in for monitoring, had the appointment with the consultant on the Friday. He was like, right, I'm booking you in for a section. If you come in and you want to be induced in the morning, you can try that, but the section's booked for you. Because nobody would tell me how to have this baby. And that's all I wanted to know. What is the best thing to do?
Right.
He said, you can come in the morning, make up your mind. If you're doing the induction and it's not going well, we can just convert it to a section. So I said that was fine. They sent me to Antrim for steroids for Killian's lungs because he was kind of going to be 37 weeks, which is still a bit early.
You still need another wee week or two,
Yeah. And then went back up on the next day to get the second dose of it, and the nurse said, how's the movement? And they had said to me, it can reduce a wee bit after the steroids, can make them a bit sleepy. And I had noticed that he hadn't been moving as much. She put me on the monitor and she was like, no, his heart rate's quite low. We're going to move you into another room. I had to phone Andrew. I had a panic attack in the middle of it. Never had a panic attack before. Couldn't breathe. Sitting with this mask on because it was still COVID. And had to get Andrew up to the hospital. By the time he came in, they were like, no, it's all fine. We think it's just a wee dip. He's okay.
Yeah.
Going to keep you in overnight. Moved me up to the ward. Andrew went and got my bag from the car, came back up. I was being wheeled back down to delivery. Ended up in another emergency section. Like, you couldn't make this up. So it's 2 traumatic births.
What changed in that short period of time?
So it turned out that Killian, whenever he was born, a couple of days later, had an ECG, and he just has a slightly slower heart rate.
So they were concerned, but did they not have to be concerned?
Well, no.
Was it
but
just spared on the side of caution?
Given
Yeah,
my
yeah,
history,
given
they
your-
were
of
like,
course, yeah.
because as well, I was going to be having a section the next week anyway. They were like, look, it's only a week earlier, so
Yeah.
we'll just do it now. But it meant that we ended up back in the NICU, the exact same one that we were in the year before. They wheeled me in that night to see Killian, and it was right beside where Owen's incubator was, and I was just like, are you like all the same nurses? Like, I was in floods of tears whenever we came in. All the nurses, like, they couldn't believe it either that we were back.
And so soon, it's a year later.
A year later,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were still in at that time the year before.
Jesus.
Yeah, so we had definitely had an easier time with Killian. He was basically in for jaundice, so we had to
Yeah.
stay in for about a week with him, and then we got him home, and then
I mean, that's an exhausting time.
so tiring, and just so much to try and process.
Yeah.
Except I wasn't processing any of it because
How long was your IVF journey from start to finish then?
So it was 5 years from when we kind
Right.
of started trying to get pregnant and until we had the
But
twins
it's like
in.
constant as well. Like
Yeah.
ours took a long time too, but we were like, it was like a year's break. Like we weren't.
It's all the
that seems
waiting.
like constant.
So I was quite
Yeah.
lackadaisy. Like you were saying, we need to get the ball rolling now because it could take like 2,
Yeah,
3,
for
4
waiting
years
lists,
for
yeah.
a waiting
sort
list
of
and for us to
stuff.
even get on the
Yeah.
the list or whatever.
yeah.
And it did take a really long time.
It
I
is
was
slow.
like,
I
we'll
know
hold off.
whenever we were initially referred to the Royal, whenever we had the blood tests and stuff, the consultant that we saw was just like, look, everything has come back normal. Why don't you try for another 6 months and then we'll put you on the waiting list? So that kind of delayed things a wee bit longer too. So just that initially getting on the waiting list with the NHS was the longest
Yeah.
part of it, for sure.
And like, do you speak to other? I know you obviously have your page, your IVF Mumblings page, but do you have connections with other people who have experienced baby loss? Because that's such
Yes.
a unique. Nobody understands that unless
Yeah.
you've experienced it. There's
So-
nobody who can say anything.
No, the best, I think after about 4 months after having Killian, it all hit me, and I realised I was depressed, and my GP was amazing. I phoned, and that afternoon I had a consultation with someone about counselling, and they got me counselling straight away,
Brilliant.
and I went on antidepressants, and it was amazing. And I kind of went through counselling for a year, and I came to the end of the year and I thought, what am I going to do now? Like, I'm on my own here. And I came across this amazing charity called Little Forget Me Nots Trust. And Louise and Catherine that run it are just amazing. And they do these things called Just Be cafes across Northern Ireland. And you can go along, it's a group of brave mums or parents. You go along and you learn like a skill. So we do
very
like
good.
cupcake making, we've done embroidery, candle making, just loads of different
Yeah.
things. And you just go along and you chat to other mums and you hear their stories. And for me, that is the best support. Just walking into a room of women, not even having to say anything, but just knowing that everybody
They've
there
been
gets
through
it.
it.
Everybody
Yeah.
understands exactly how you're feeling and why you're there. And that has been amazing for me over the past year.
And I'm sure, like you're amazing. I don't know how you do it. So I don't know why it's your story, like, but I don't know how you fucking continue to be.
Yeah.
I know. I have had no option. I've had to, because I think
You've got 2 kids to look after as well.
I think if it would have been a very different situation if we didn't have Lucia, because I don't know myself how I would have got out of bed every day. I really don't. We had literally had no option.
Yeah.
Like, we had to just keep going for her, and then to find out we were having Killian. I'm not one of these people that I'm like, oh, everything happens for a reason. I just don't believe that crap. But what I am so grateful for is the fact that we had Lucia, and
Yeah.
also that I got pregnant with Killian so quickly, because that decision to have another child was made for me.
Yeah.
And even then, the guilt that I had about being
Yeah.
pregnant, knowing that I was pregnant with a boy, and what people would think was I trying to replace
Yeah.
Owen with another baby, and the fact that they were so close in age. But you just have to ignore all the noise and
Yeah.
focus on yourself.
Are you religious or spiritual or anything? No.
And that's hard too.
Yeah.
Because Lucia is at the stage where we're chatting, like, we've been chatting to her about him for years, but she's understanding more. And
But you don't talk to her about, like,
No.
Heaven
So we're
and
not,
stuff, yeah.
we're atheist, I would say.
So we are too.
And I almost feel a bit envious of people that are religious, because I think, like
Yeah.
Lucia would say, well, obviously a 3-year-old doesn't understand what death is. Like, she knows that Owen was her twin, and that she knows that they were both sick when they were born, but that Owen didn't survive. But she doesn't know. Like, she's like, where is he? And I
She doesn't
can't
understand,
say he's in heaven,
Yeah.
because I don't
You don't
believe
believe in
that,
that?
or he's in the clouds, because I don't believe that. So
Yeah.
we just have to try
I know.
and
Because this is something I've always thought about, and I think it's a cultural thing too. We aren't equipped to deal with grief or death.
No.
Nobody should ever have to be equipped to deal with their children dying.
Yeah.
But we don't know how to speak about death enough, I think. And so when you're, especially if you have no, because obviously people use religion as a coping mechanism for grief, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To believe that they're off somewhere better,
They'll
or
be
having
united again and all, and that's lovely.
and I
for
would love to
them.
have that too.
I do,
Sometimes
yeah.
I go,
Yeah,
that would
of
be
course.
great
Yeah.
to believe that, but I
Yeah.
can't fucking force myself to believe
I
it.
know, and it would make life so much easier. We've had to do other things, you know, like we talk about going to Owen's garden, which is his grave, and like on his anniversary, like we go to the beach, we release balloons, we get cake for him. So we've just we're still learning, and we're still like working out what works for us, basically. But I hope that she'll grow up and feel his presence in some way, or know that, you know, he was her twin and he'll always be a part of our lives, even if he's not here.
That's beautiful.
And I think even like obviously at the start, whenever they're together, like they're a part of each other too, aren't they?
Yeah. So we've like loads of his things from the hospital and all, and I've put them away in a wee box for her, and she'll get them all when she's older. And we've so many videos, and that's kind of in a way why the Instagram is good, because it's all documented on there.
Yeah.
So I would love to print out all my posts, put them into a book, and be able to give it to her, and be
very
like,
good.
this is your story, this is how we had you, and this is what happened with Owen and with Killian.
And you started this account at the beginning of your IVF journey, isn't
It was
that right?
about halfway through it, I think. We were just starting with Belfast Fertility, and I just thought I just needed an outlet for it. I always I'd be into journaling and things, and I just thought I'll just start putting it on there, and then I kind of just loads of women messaging, because they were going through the same thing, and I couldn't believe that there was just this community of women all going through this, and everybody feeling the same thing.
Are you on the Facebook page?
I know the one you're talking about. No, I'm not on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that you don't go on
No,
to it?
I just never. I don't really use Facebook, but I know I know people that have been in it and stuff, and apparently it's amazing.
It's great. I was always on the Facebook. I've found it difficult to take myself out. Sometimes you'd be like, right, you can take yourself out of that now. And I'm like, I'm invested now.
I know, but it's kind of like, you know, you've been through it, and you can kind of
you can answer,
and you can answer people's questions as well. You know, because I'm sure if people are going abroad, then they would want to know about it as well.
That's one of the most asked questions I get, is people contact me going, how did you decide where to go abroad? What's the most common question you get asked?
People always ask, what did I do differently for the round of IVF that worked? Because I'd been through so many and it never worked. What did I do differently that round? I get asked that a lot.
Yeah, and it was your medication and your stims.
Yeah, we also got a dog, and my husband is convinced that the dog is the reason that we got pregnant.
Here, I do not want that doctor operating on me. That is not a doctor I trust.
I think it was that he was a distraction. So I was like out walking the dog, and we literally just got him before we started.
Less stressed.
Yeah, so he's convinced that that's why the dog's an absolute fucking nightmare.
Here, just let you know, no, that's not what it is. Listen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. You're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, you're an
and
incredible person. Thanks for coming in. Just one last thing. Any of our listeners or viewers, if they're affected by anything that they've heard or seen today, how can they receive support that you've received?
You mentioned a charity there.
Yeah, so for baby loss, I would say Little Forget Me Nots Trust for sure. For mental health, please contact your GP. I know NHS gets a bad report at times, but honestly, when I phoned, I was seen and sorted that day, and I can't thank them enough.
Like I could not recommend getting medicated enough either.
Yeah,
I think it's
there's a stigma attached to that too.
Oh, get the pills in you.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm still on antidepressants, and there's no shame to it, and I'll be on them for as long as I need.
That's it. It allows you to function absolutely until your body restores whatever the way it was before. But thank you so much for coming on. IVF Mumblings is your page. This is going to sound like a fucking shameless plug now, but my plain lyric is, I feel like a form of therapy for me. Like, it's a show that I wrote based on my own experiences, and I really hope that so many people would watch it who have been through experiences like we all have, and find slight humour in it. Because that's so fucking hard to find.
That's one thing. People, how did we get through it? We have a kind of warped sense of humour.
Yeah.
And we laughed our way through those 5 years because
That's great.
that was the only thing we could do.
Yeah.
Watching our videos, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course.
And getting a dog.
Get a
Aideen,
dog.
thanks so
Don't
much.
get a dog.
Yeah. Don't get a dog.
Thank you so much.
No worries.